I thought coming home after a long day at work meant peace. A quiet evening, maybe some dinner, definitely some rest. I had been at the office since 7 that morning, buried in code and client meetings for a project that could make or break our quarter. My phone had been on silent during back-to-back presentations, and by the time I checked it around 9 p.m., I realized I had forgotten to tell Amber I would be late. We had been married for 3 years, and while things were not perfect, I thought we were solid. I sent her a quick text. "Sorry babe, crazy day. Heading home now. Be there in 20 minutes. She replied with a smiley face emoji. I smiled back at my screen, started my car, and drove home through the quiet Seattle streets. I had no idea that in less than half an hour I would be face down on my own lawn, handcuffed with guns pointed at my back, while my wife recorded the whole thing and laughed. Before I dive into what happened that night, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you are ready to hear how a single so-called prank destroyed my marriage and taught me the hardest lesson about respect and boundaries, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. What I am about to share is not just about handcuffs on my own lawn. This is about discovering who someone truly is when they think consequences do not apply to them. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is James Peterson. I am 32 years old, and I work as a software engineer for a mid-sized tech company in Seattle. The job keeps me busy, sometimes too busy, but it pays well, and I genuinely enjoy the problem-solving aspect of coding. Amber and I lived in a small 2-bedroom house in the suburbs, the kind with a white picket fence and a neat front lawn that I mowed every Sunday morning. She worked part-time at a yoga studio downtown, teaching evening classes a few times a week. On paper, we looked like any other young married couple building a life together. We met 5 years ago at a coffee shop near the University District. I was there working on my laptop, and she spilled her latte right next to my table. She apologized profusely, and somehow that turned into a 2-hour conversation. Amber was vibrant, outgoing, always laughing. I liked that about her. I have always been the more reserved, serious type, the guy who double-checks everything and keeps his calendar color-coded. She brought spontaneity into my life, and I thought that balance was good for me. We dated for 2 years before I proposed, and the wedding was small but beautiful. Her parents flew in from California, mine drove up from Oregon, and Kyle, my best friend since college, was my best man. The first year of marriage was great. We traveled a little, hosted dinners for friends, and settled into a comfortable routine. But somewhere around the second year, I started noticing Amber's love for pranks. Little things at first. She would hide my car keys right before I needed to leave for work, then laugh when I frantically searched for them. She would add salt to my coffee instead of sugar and film my reaction. She once locked me out of the house at midnight when I went out to take the trash to the curb, leaving me standing in my pajamas for 10 minutes before she finally opened the door, giggling hysterically. Every time I tried to laugh it off, I told myself she was just trying to keep things fun, that maybe I was too uptight and needed to loosen up. But deep down, I felt a knot of irritation tightening each time. When I tried to bring it up gently, she would wave me off. "Come on, James, it is just a joke. You are too serious," she would say, rolling her eyes. I did not want to be the boring husband who could not take a joke, so I stayed quiet. I wish I had not. A few weeks before the incident, her pranks escalated. One night, she pretended my laptop had crashed and deleted an important work file. I panicked for a solid 15 minutes before she admitted she had just hidden the file in another folder. Another time, she told my mother I had been in a minor car accident, and my mom called me in tears before I could explain it was not true. Amber thought that was hilarious. I did not. I told her she had crossed a line, and she promised to tone it down. She did not. That Wednesday started like any other. I woke up at 6:30, showered, made coffee, and left for the office by 7:15. Amber was still asleep when I kissed her forehead and headed out. The day turned into a marathon of meetings. Our biggest client needed revisions on a software module, and the deadline was tight. My team and I huddled in the conference room for hours, troubleshooting code and running tests. I barely had time to grab a sandwich from the vending machine for lunch. Around 3 in the afternoon, I put my phone on silent during a presentation. By the time the meeting ended at 6, I had missed a few texts from Amber asking what time I would be home. I replied quickly, apologizing for not responding sooner, and told her I would be home by 7. But then another issue came up, a critical bug that needed immediate fixing. My manager pulled me aside and asked if I could stay late to help resolve it. I agreed. I texted Amber again around 7:30. Still at work, babe? Be home by 9:30. Sorry. She sent back a thumbs up emoji. I thought everything was fine. By 9:15, I finally wrapped up. I grabbed my laptop bag, said goodnight to the 2 other engineers still there, and headed to the parking garage. The drive home took about 20 minutes. The streets were quiet, just a few cars here and there. I turned onto our block around 9:30, relieved to finally be heading home. The porch light was on, and I could see the glow of the television through the living room window. Everything looked normal. I parked in the driveway, turned off the engine, and grabbed my bag from the passenger seat. As I stepped out of the car, I heard sirens. Faint at first, then louder. I glanced down the street and saw flashing red and blue lights approaching fast. My first thought was that something had happened to one of our neighbors. Maybe a medical emergency or a break-in. I stood there for a second watching. Then the patrol cars screeched to a stop right in front of my house. 2 of them. 4 officers jumped out and I froze. One of them pointed at me and shouted, "Hands up, get on the ground." My brain could not process what was happening. I looked around thinking maybe they were talking to someone else, but their eyes were locked on me. "This is my house," I said, my voice shaking. "What is going on?" "On the ground, face down, do it now." Another officer yelled, his hand on his holster. My heart slammed against my ribs. I raised my hands slowly, then dropped to my knees. The grass was wet from the sprinklers that had run earlier that evening, and I felt the cold moisture seep through my pants as I lay face down. My cheek pressed against the damp lawn, and I could smell the earth and cut grass. One officer grabbed my wrists and pulled them behind my back. The metal handcuffs clicked shut, cold and tight against my skin. Someone read me my rights, but the words blurred together. I could barely breathe. "There has been a mistake," I managed to say, my voice muffled against the ground. "I live here. My name is James Peterson. Please check my wallet. It is in my back pocket." One of the officers, a tall man with a name tag that read Rodriguez, knelt beside me and carefully pulled my wallet out. He flipped it open and looked at my driver's license. I heard him speak into his radio. "Control, we need clarification. The individual matches the ID for this address." The dispatcher's voice crackled back. "Caller reported an unknown male attempting to break into the residence. Caller identified as the homeowner's wife." My blood turned to ice. Amber. Amber had called the police on me. My own wife had reported me as an intruder. I could not wrap my mind around it. Why would she do that? Then I heard it. Laughter. High-pitched, delighted laughter coming from inside the house. I turned my head as much as I could and saw her. Amber was standing at the upstairs window holding her phone up, clearly recording. She was laughing so hard she had to lean against the window frame. Officer Rodriguez stood up and walked toward the house. Another officer, Thompson, according to his badge, followed. They knocked on the front door, and Amber opened it almost immediately, still giggling. "Oh, officers, I am so sorry," she said, her voice light and cheerful, like she was explaining a harmless mix-up. "It was just a prank. That is my husband. I wanted to teach him a lesson about coming home late without warning me." Officer Thompson did not smile. His expression was stone. "Ma'am, calling 911 as a prank is a serious offense. You wasted police resources and put officers in a potentially dangerous situation." Amber's smile faltered just a little, but she waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, come on. It is harmless. Look at him, he is fine, just a little joke." I was not fine. I was lying on wet grass, my wrists aching from the cuffs, humiliated beyond words. I could see neighbors starting to open their doors, peering out to see what was happening. Mrs. Cho from across the street had her phone out recording. Officer Rodriguez came back over and helped me to my feet, unlocking the handcuffs. "I am very sorry, Mr. Peterson," he said quietly. "We were responding to a 911 call. We had no way of knowing it was a prank." I rubbed my wrists and looked up at Amber. She was still standing at the door, but her expression had shifted. She looked a little worried now, like maybe she was realizing this was not playing out the way she had imagined. "It was just a joke, James," she called out. "Do not be so dramatic." Dramatic. She thought I was being dramatic. Officer Rodriguez turned to me. "Mr. Peterson, do you wish to press charges for filing a false police report?" I looked at Amber. I looked at the officers. I thought about every prank she had ever pulled, every time I had swallowed my frustration and let it go. I thought about the fact that she had put me in a situation where I could have been hurt, where a simple misunderstanding could have turned deadly if I had moved wrong or if an officer had been on edge. And I thought about the fact that she was not sorry. She thought this was funny. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I want to press charges." Amber's eyes went wide. "What, James, you would not?" she shouted, stepping down from the porch. "James, stop, it was a joke." Officer Thompson walked toward her. "Ma'am, you will need to come with us. Filing a false police report is a misdemeanor." Her face went from shock to fear. "James, tell them you are kidding. Come on." I turned and walked toward the house. Behind me, I heard her pleading, heard the officer reading her rights. I did not look back. Inside the house was quiet. Too quiet. I stood in the living room, my hands still shaking my heart, pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. I sat down on the couch in the dark, not bothering to turn on the lights. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a tidal wave of anger, hurt, and something else I could not quite name. Betrayal, maybe. I sat there for a long time, replaying everything in my head. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of brushing off her jokes, convincing myself I was overreacting. But this was not a joke. This was cruel. She had put me in danger. She had humiliated me. And worse, she had done it on purpose, knowing full well what would happen, because she thought my reaction would be entertaining. I realized then that I did not really know the person I had married. Or maybe I did, and I had just been ignoring the truth because it was easier than confronting it. I pulled out my phone and called Kyle. He answered on the second ring, his voice groggy. "James, man, it is almost midnight. What is going on?" I told him everything. The whole story poured out of me, from the police cars to the handcuffs to Amber laughing while I was detained on my own lawn. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. Then Kyle swore. That is insane, James. That is not a prank. That is dangerous. You could have been hurt. What if you had panicked? What if one of those cops had been trigger-happy? I know, I said, my voice hollow. That is why I pressed charges. But Kyle, I cannot stay in this marriage. There was another pause. Then Kyle sighed. I hate to say it, man, but I have been worried about her for a while. She has always taken things too far. Remember your birthday last year when she pretended to forget it for 3 days straight? You were miserable, and she thought it was hilarious. That was messed up. I did remember. I had spent my entire birthday thinking Amber had genuinely forgotten feeling hurt and neglected, only for her to jump out with a cake on the 4th day, laughing about how gullible I was. At the time, I had forced a smile. Now I saw it for what it was. Kyle gave me the name of a lawyer he knew, Gregory Walsh, who specialized in both criminal and divorce law. Call him first thing in the morning, Kyle said, and document everything. If Amber posted that video anywhere, screenshot it. Save every text, everything. Thanks, Kyle, I said. I mean it. He told me to hang in there, and we hung up. I did not sleep that night. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, thinking about what came next. At 7 a.m., I called Gregory Walsh. I explained the situation, and he listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "You did the right thing pressing charges. False police reports are taken seriously, and based on what you have told me, we can move forward with divorce proceedings immediately. Do you have a safe place to stay?" I told him about Kyle's offer to let me crash at his apartment. Good, Gregory said. Stay there. Do not be alone with her. Document everything. I will draft the paperwork today, and we can meet this afternoon to go over it. Amber was released on bail around 10 that morning. Her mother, who lived about an hour away, posted it and picked her up. I knew she would come home soon, and I needed to be ready. I spent the morning packing a bag with clothes and essentials. I worked methodically, folding shirts, rolling socks, keeping my mind focused on the task, so I would not have to think about the emotions swirling underneath. She came home just before noon. I heard the car pull into the driveway, heard the front door open. "James!" she called out. Her voice sounded tired, strained. I walked down the stairs, a manila envelope in my hand. She was standing in the entryway, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her eyes red and puffy. She looked like she had been crying. "James, we need to talk," she said. "Yes, we do," I replied, walking past her into the dining room. I sat down at the table and placed the envelope in front of me. She followed and sat across from me, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "Look, I am sorry, okay?" she started. "I did not think it would be that big of a deal. I thought you would laugh it off eventually. You always do." I stared at her. "You thought having me held at gunpoint, handcuffed on our lawn and humiliated in front of our neighbors would be something I would laugh off." She flinched. "When you put it that way, it sounds bad. But James, you are always so serious. I just wanted to shake things up, loosen you up a little. By calling the police, by making them think there was a real threat, Amber, do you understand what could have happened? What if I had made a sudden move? What if one of those officers was on edge and thought I was dangerous?" She bit her lip. "But nothing happened. You are fine." "No, Amber." I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I am not fine, and this marriage is not fine." I pushed the envelope across the table. She stared at it, then slowly reached out and opened it. I watched her eyes scan the first page, watched the color drain from her face. "What is this?" she whispered. "Divorce papers. I said. I want a divorce. She looked up at me, tears spilling down her cheeks. James, no. We can work this out. I will change. No more pranks. I promise. I had heard that before. After she locked me out. After she hid my keys before an important meeting. After she threw away the gift I had bought for my mother and told me it was a joke. You have said that before, Amber. And every time you do it again. You cross the line, I forgive you, and then you cross it further. I am done. She reached across the table, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled away. Please, James. I love you. I did not mean to hurt you. I stood up. You did not mean to hurt me, but you did. And when you did, you laughed. You did not apologize until you were facing consequences. That tells me everything I need to know. I picked up my bag from the floor by the stairs. You have 30 days to respond to the petition. My lawyer will be in touch. She was sobbing now, begging me to stay, but I walked out the door. Kyle was waiting in his car at the curb. I got in, and we drove away. I did not look back. Living with Kyle was not easy, but it was necessary. He had a 2-bedroom apartment downtown, and he cleared out his spare room for me without hesitation. Stay as long as you need, brother, he said. I took a week off work, using up some of my saved vacation days. I needed time to process everything, to figure out my next steps without the pressure of deadlines and meetings. Amber tried everything to get me back. She called and texted constantly. When I blocked her number, she used her friends' phones. She showed up at Kyle's building once, but the doorman would not let her up without my permission. I did not give it. My lawyer advised me to keep all communication strictly through him, and I followed that advice. Every message she sent, every voicemail she left, I forwarded to Gregory. He saved them all as evidence of harassment. The court date for the false police report came about 3 weeks later. I did not attend, but Gregory did, and he called me afterward with the results. Amber had pleaded guilty, hoping for leniency. She did not get much. The judge sentenced her to 1 year of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $1,500 fine. She also had to write a formal apology to the police department. Gregory told me the judge had been particularly stern, noting that pranks involving emergency services put lives at risk. The divorce process took longer. Amber contested it, at first trying to argue for a larger share of the assets and claiming I was abandoning her in her time of need. But with her criminal record from the false report and evidence of her pattern of reckless behavior, the court did not side with her. 4 months after I filed, the divorce was finalized. I kept the house since I had paid off the mortgage before we got married with money from an inheritance. We split the joint savings account down the middle. There was no alimony. It was clean as a divorce can be. During those months, I focused on rebuilding. I started going to therapy. My counselor, a patient woman named Dr. Lynn, helped me understand why I had stayed silent for so long. You avoided conflict because you thought keeping the peace was more important than standing up for yourself, she explained. But that is not sustainable. Boundaries are not walls. They are guidelines for how you deserve to be treated. When someone repeatedly crosses them, it is not love. It is disrespect. That hit me hard. I had spent years thinking I was being a good husband by forgiving Amber, by not making a big deal out of her pranks. But really, I had been teaching her that my feelings did not matter, that she could do whatever she wanted without consequence. I would not make that mistake again. I started working out at the gym near Kyle's apartment. I joined a running club that met on Saturday mornings. I reconnected with old friends I had drifted away from during my marriage because Amber had not liked them. Slowly, piece by piece, I started to feel like myself again. Not the version of me that tiptoed around someone else's moods and jokes, but the version who knew what he wanted and was not afraid to ask for it. A year after the divorce was finalized, I bought a condo in a different neighborhood. It was smaller than the house Amber and I had shared, but it was mine. No memories, no baggage, just clean white walls and big windows that let in the morning light. I furnished it slowly, carefully, picking out pieces that felt right. A comfortable couch, a sturdy desk for working from home, bookshelves that I filled with novels I had been meaning to read for years. Work was going well, too. I got promoted to lead engineer managing a small team of developers. The responsibility was challenging, but I liked it. I liked having people rely on me, liked solving problems and mentoring the younger engineers. My boss told me I seemed more confident, more decisive. I did not tell him why. I did not need to. My social life improved too. I went out more, said yes to invitations I would have turned down before. I traveled a little, took a solo trip to Portland to visit my parents, and spent a weekend hiking in the Cascades. I was not looking for a relationship. I was not ready for that yet. I was still learning how to trust again, how to recognize red flags early instead of ignoring them. But I knew that when the time came, I would be okay. I would find someone who respected me, who understood that love means treating each other with kindness, not cruelty disguised as humor. Sometimes late at night, I still think about that evening. I can still feel the cold metal of the handcuffs, the damp grass against my cheek, the humiliation of being treated like a criminal in front of my neighbors. But I do not feel angry anymore. I feel grateful. Grateful that it happened, as strange as that sounds, because it woke me up. It forced me to see the truth I had been avoiding for so long. Amber did not respect me. She never had. And I had been complicit in my own mistreatment by staying silent, by prioritizing her amusement over my dignity. I learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is also the best thing. It strips away the illusions and shows you who people really are. And once you see that, you can make a choice. You can stay and accept it, or you can walk away and choose yourself. I chose myself. I pressed charges. I filed for divorce. I set boundaries and enforced them even when it hurt, even when it was hard. And in doing that, I found something I had lost, my self-respect. I do not hate Amber. I do not wish her harm. I hope she learned something from all of this, that maybe she grew up a little understood that actions have consequences. But that is not my concern anymore. My concern is building a life that feels authentic, surrounding myself with people who lift me up instead of tearing me down, and never again accepting less than I deserve. If I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be this: trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it probably is. Do not ignore discomfort because you are afraid of conflict. Do not let someone convince you that their cruelty is just a joke. Love should feel safe. It should feel respectful. And if it does not, you have every right to walk away. You are not abandoning someone by leaving a toxic situation. You are saving yourself. And that is not selfish. That is survival. Some people will try to test your boundaries to see how much they can get away with. The first time they cross the line, they are learning where the line is. The second time, they are seeing if you will enforce it. The third time, they know you will not. And that is when things escalate. I let it get to the third, fourth, 10th time. I will not do that again. Now I speak up the first time. I say no without guilt. I leave situations that do not serve me. And I sleep better at night because of it. So here is my question for you. Have you ever stayed in a situation longer than you should have because you were afraid of being the bad guy? Have you ever let someone cross your boundaries repeatedly because you did not want to rock the boat? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear your stories. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe for more real-life stories about growth boundaries and finding your way back to yourself. Thank you for listening. I hope wherever you are choosing yourself too. Take care.